Welcome back to Burning the Red Shirt. I'm your host, Zach Tao. Here with me is Chris K and Andrew Katz, as always. You guys doing all right tonight?
As good as ever.
Nice.
Good, man.
Lots of excitement to start this one.
Right. So,
this is the
all right. Do we want to kick this one off again?
Recording on Monday night, right? I mean, some of us actually had a real grind of a Monday, meetings all day, and then come home and have to go to your real job at 8:30 at night. So,
fair enough. All right, let's jump right into it then. The big topic over the last, I'd say, week or so was the whole Nick Saban-Jimbo Fisher back and forth, about the transfer portal and paying players and so on and so forth. Andrew, how do you feel? Do you think that Nick Saban's got valid points, or do you think he was out of line?
So I tweeted my thought-provoking remarks on this, buried in a reply to a guy who does the Flipping the Field podcast. I don't even remember his name. It's not Patrick. It's his co-host, but and it just got buried in there. And I didn't have the gall to tweet it out in a way that actually would get real engagement, because I feel like it's just going to be met generally with disdain and disagreement. But my thoughts overall are that Saban reached the end of his rope when it comes to this sort of thing. I think, maybe it's purely conspiratorial, but I think that losing out on Addison was the final straw, and something snapped. And that's what triggered this speech during whatever tour he's on right now. I don't know if it's like a booster related tour or to get money into the program or something like that. But so that's what I think was the trigger for this. But I think that, I don't know, when me personally, I always, as someone who lives to compete and aspires to always improve, not only from a physical perspective when it comes to competition, but mentally as well. I think it's interesting to look at the people who are at the top of their game in whatever craft they're in, and not just look at them through the prism of how they are acting when they are winning, but when they're losing, how are they reacting in that moment? And I think in some ways it's awesome to see Saban actually act like a human being, and throw a temper tantrum in this regard, because he's generally been above the fray throughout his career. He earned, and I know my book's important to him, he earned respect in my book with how he processed losing to Georgia in the national title game. He handled it really well, I thought. But not all all-time greats handle situations like that very well. As a huge tennis fan who grew up watching Federer, Nadal, who continue to, through modern science and whatever drugs are getting ingested into their bodies, continue to dominate, right? I remember watching Federer, the first time he really looked human, it felt like, was in the range of somewhere around 2010 in the U.S. Open, when he lost in the final to Juan Martín del Potro. He threw an absolute temper tantrum on the court. And I was like, this is it. This is this guy who walks around like a golden god at all times. We're actually seeing what it's like when he's losing to someone who maybe isn't Nadal, right? Isn't someone who he considers to be his all-time rival. And this is this guy actually having to process disappointment, that unexpected disappointment, and what it feels like to be human. And I think this is Saban's moment like that, where I'm sure you've seen the tweets about it as well, with people talking about how the playing field is now leveled, right? In a lot of ways when it comes to recruiting, and Saban now has to play by everybody else's rules. I think that's up for debate in a lot of ways, and we don't even have access to all the information to be able to actually make a statement like that. But presuming that there's some sort of truth to it, right? It's funny to see that this is potentially how Saban is reacting to those realities.
So the way I look at it is kind of like what you said there at the end, everybody else has caught up to him more so in terms of recruiting power. Before, Saban could walk into somebody's living room and said, "You'll be in the NFL in 4 years." And for the most part, he was fairly accurate with that statement. So now he has that pull still, but if other schools can pay money to level the playing field, then I think, like you said, I don't know if I would call it a temper tantrum, but I would call it he's realizing that it's going to be much harder to just go in and say, hey, come to Alabama because you'll be in the NFL in 3, 4, 5 years, versus, hey, Texas A&M or whoever is going to pay you $1 million to come here. So, Chris, you got any thoughts?
It's an interesting subject because there's so many ways to like look at like Saban right now, and I just had not thought about it like you guys had. Like, I think obviously the playing field is more level, but like I think ultimately a lot of schools, maybe A&M especially, have gotten good recruits and not done anything. So like, why is anything different, right? Like Andrew was laughing that I had a slow Monday, and this weekend I was just screwing around and I was adding players to my like draft room for these off-season supplemental drafts, which shows you how slow my weekend was. And A&M's got everybody, but like A&M's always had everybody, right? Like, what did Bama recruit? Like they weren't like a 25th rated class. Like they're like top 5 still. So why are we like, okay, so A&M has the number 1 class or number 2 class? Like, is it that much different than in the years past, especially considering Bama is also a top 5 class? Like, if anything, it's like, if I'm Saban, I'm just like, you're really annoying me and you want to do this shit, then I'm going to do this shit. Sorry to go not safe for work. And we did it within the first 7 minutes, but that's the first time I've done it this time. So I just don't see why, like, ultimately Saban is Saban, and he's been at this level for a reason, and he's been at Bama forever, and he's always won, and Bama was not winning beforehand. So, like, I don't know why we think that this is like going to trigger a decline potentially of it. Definitely isn't A&M that's going to change anything.
I don't think it's necessarily a decline of Alabama. He's still going to get players. I don't think that's up really for debate. I think the way I look at it too is Texas A&M's the best school in Texas, right? So, I mean, some people might argue, but A&M right now is the place to be if you're going to stay in state in Texas. So there's a ton of players in Texas, so why wouldn't they get a majority of them?
Yeah, I don't think what set him off was an aggregated rankings comparison of himself to A&M. It's losing recruiting battles to these schools on specific players that he wanted and he's not getting, and that I think
and it was because of money.
Theoretically.
I think you're probably right, Andrew, that the Addison thing triggered him to say something, but he didn't lose into A&M.
Right.
And I don't think Bama's got the money within their boosters to compete for sure with like an A&M or Texas. But like, how many schools do? And then compare the recruiting classes plus the coaching staff plus the success in the last 10 years. I still would take Bama paying $5 million to all their players over A&M paying $20 million to all their players, like, to get them all. Like, I don't think like A&M is going to have a sick recruiting class, but like, how many of them are transferring in a year or two because like they realize that Jimbo is Jimbo, right? I don't know. Like, I just like, it's not good for Bama. Like we talked about this a couple of weeks back, I guess, with like Georgia, how like this stuff isn't good for Georgia because Georgia like recruits and does everything and they don't need any help. Like, so of course, like it's going to level the playing field maybe closer to the mean, but it's still going to be pro Bama. It's still going to be pro Georgia. It just means that maybe A&M is a tick closer than they were 3 years ago.
Yeah. The good coaches, the good teams are going to get good players. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be now. It's just the teams that are above average trying to become a good team have a better chance of becoming a good team because they can pay their way. Well, they've always been able to do that, but now it's more open that you can do that. Any final thoughts?
I want to finish this thought and then sharp turn as well. So I think Saban in his speech his rant was railing on about paying players in general, and then cited examples of A&M and Jackson State, right? Called out Deion as well. So I think that the theory works, that Addison pushes him over the top, brings it to a boiling point where he wants to actually talk about this subject and give his thoughts on it. And then he cites those specific examples of A&M and Jackson State. Jackson State, though, so I think what Deion is doing so many good things as a coach. Like, I'm so interested in what his next stop is, and I assume there is a next stop in the not too distant future. Like, came in, immediately started recruiting awesome players through various means. I think his gravitas and his presence and just his ability to walk into a room wins him so much talent, no question asked. And then also using all the different means to ends of NIL partnerships that he has with different companies and stuff to bring in more players and talent immediately, and his bloodlines as well, right? Brings in Shadir, or however you say his name, like his son, as the top QB recruit. Immediately starts winning games. They won like 10 games last year, right? And now, I think most impressively, I don't know if this flew totally under the radar. I don't even know how it wound up in my feed, but I read an article that basically coming out of last year, he realized like my offense sucks. Like, and if you look at the box scores, they lost one or two games, and one of them was our boys Louisiana Monroe, and Shadir had like 84 yards passing. They lost the game like 7-3 or like 10-7. Like, it was just I can't even imagine watching that game. And the offense largely was like pretty stagnant relative to the talent level that they had, even though they were winning games. Like, a lot of coaches, I think, in that scenario were like, I won 10 games. I'm cool. Let's run it back. But Deion recognized at the conclusion of last season, like, my offense sucks to get things where I want them to go. I need to can my OC and lean into potentially not my closest network, not that which I know best, and just want to lean into what is going to ultimately make me successful. So calls up Mike Leach, and he's like, yo, Mike, do you have a candidate to come in and run my offense? And Mike's like, yeah, I got this kid, Brett Bartolone, who was a wide receiver on my team at Wazoo like 6 years ago. Kid washed out because he had numerous injuries, been coaching overseas, been doing all kinds of things. Bring him in to run your offense and let him just run the air raid because it's going to be awesome. And he's going to be a great coach. And Deion's like, yeah, sign me up. Let's do it. So Deion brought this kid in to be the OC this year. And it sucks that we can't let Jackson State into fantasy this year unless maybe we'll get them on a DFS slate if they're on like a midweek or something, and we could low key roll out their air raid. But I'm excited to see how it plays out, because I think it is very uncommon that you see coaches do that, right? A, go away from something that just won you 10 games. B, not necessarily just go with someone that you may already have as a connection or have experience working with. So I think he's checking all the boxes to not just succeed at Jackson State, but line himself up for an awesome job in the next season or two.
Okay, so where do you think he ends up?
I was just going to say, like,
your shot.
I mean, think about this is maybe a transition into another conversation, but like Florida State's not very good, and like their coaching, they fired the one guy. Who's that? The USF guy, wasn't it? Willie Taggart.
Yeah.
And was Jay Norvell right now. He's done like Mike Norvell, same. Has done worse since in like more time. Like, it's probably not going to get better this year. Does Deion almost need like another year? Like, hey, Norvell, win just enough to last one more year to line me up to smooth transition. But like, why wouldn't he go to FSU?
Well, they burned so many bridges with him, right, during the last coaching cycle when he wanted to go there, right? And they were just like,
I mean, that's like unrealistic, right? Like,
they need to go on national TV and apologize as an administration to Deion and beg him to go to Florida State.
Yes, but like, you can't blame him. You can't blame FSU. They've made a lot of bad decisions in the last 10 years, but you can't blame them. Like, oh yeah, hire the guy that has zero coaching experience to be your head coach. Like, you
Right.
can't actually blame them for that. Like, that's actually a reasonable decision that they've made. It just hasn't worked out. And by the way, like, Deion's been a coach, 1 or 2 years? Like, we don't know that he's actually going to be legit. We just know that he's had great success at Jackson State. Like, come on.
Well,
Like,
I'm on board.
he's recruiting all
I
the
think it's a good
kids
call
there
too. I'm
to
down with
transfer.
Florida State.
Yeah,
and
he's
he could
recruiting.
take the number one guy there too. I mean, like, how many of these great recruits that he's getting last over a year and a half there, 2 years? Like, the number one recruit, he's going there for
Dude,
1
he's
year,
gotten
right?
so much FBS transfer talent, and not just like dudes who are cast off
But
the
I'm-
rosters. Like, his first recruit was Keith Corbin, who could have started at any number of FBS schools.
How long do you think the number one recruit that went there goes there?
Yeah, he's going with Deion to the next stop. You're right.
The Florida State, right? So
Yeah.
He's recruiting them to then eventually take them with him.
Yeah.
To wherever he goes.
wherever he goes. So
yeah. I think Florida State's solid.
It's a good call.
If it's not FSU,
TCU
where would
was
it
the
be?
rumor last year, right?
Mm-hmm. I remember that TCU. Like, it was not even that long ago.
Yeah, before they hired Dykes. Yeah.
I mean, he feels like such a Florida guy that I feel like it has to be a Florida school, right?
Yeah. I mean, does a big time program, and Florida State's a big time program, do they make that splash? Or is it going to be Florida Atlantic? Or is it going to be South?
I think
he's not messing around with
FIU or
a G5 school
FAU.
at this point. After this upcoming year, no,
I think with it being FSU, like FSU couldn't just hire some FCS school or a head coach, but like because it's Deion and his pedigree and what he's done, and like the fact that he's obviously an FSU legend, you can get away with it. Like FSU can justify that. I don't think a lot of big programs can justify hiring Deion this next offseason, but I don't know. It feels like that's like the easy connection.
Yeah. All right. So I want to transition. Hopefully this is the last time we talk about him until like the season is upon us. But Addison picking USC. We want to talk about the fantasy relevance of it. He isn't going there to be the number 2, number 3 option. He's the number 1 option, I would have to think. So in terms of fantasy, what does that mean for the Gary Bryants, the Taj Washington, and the Mario Williams fantasy stock? Andrew, Chris?
So the problem is Jared and Josh already like covered this topic perfectly on the podcast that they just put out today.
Oh yeah.
I was totally off Addison at Pitt. The idea that like him being drafted early second round generally speaking in all the drafts we were doing, that was not going to pan out. I think that if he stays at Pitt, he was going to have a bad year by his standards. His draft stock was going to plummet. He was going to bust in fantasy. And now all those luck boxes that took him when he was at Pitt get bailed out. So good for them. But no, he's going to ball out at USC. It's going to be great for him compared to what he was going to do at Pitt. It's stock way up. I think I feel a little more comfortable with Mario Williams now, weirdly, than before, just because I think based on limited exposure to what we saw last year, he didn't really strike me as a target hog WR1 type guy, but I feel like his draft stock comes down a little more, and I'm fine taking where he's going in the probably mid-teens to late teens draft round. Minimal risk there, and I think he settles in nicely as the WR2.
This is an interesting conversation because before this past year, where was Jordan Addison being drafted? Because Kenny Pickett was not good before last year. As a Kenny Pickett, as the guy that can fully understand the scope of Kenny Pickett's talent and scope, but I can say this, but like he threw 13 touchdowns 2 years ago. It's a shortened season, but like still Like no one saw that coming. And I'm not saying Keaton Slovis would have been that great, but like no one saw Pickett coming and then Pickett came, right? So
Yeah,
like
but-
I'm not saying that Jordan Addison would have been some superstar first or second round talent, but I don't think it would have been much far off. Like he's very, very good in an offense in college in a bad conference that would have just fed him the football. And I'm not saying that Slovis would have thrown 40 touchdowns, but like he would have thrown enough. And
But
like
it's a different offense at Pitt this year. It's not Mark Whipple's offense anymore.
But it's still college. Like they still hammer the same good player. Like who else is getting targets and usage in that offense? Is my only thought.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So how do you feel about the other guys at USC? That I guess that's kind of what we know. Addison's not going there to take a back seat. So
you want to flush out Chris's Gary Bryant take.
And Taj Washington. Yeah, I think both of them are like very sketchy now. Now you need some help. Like now you need the guy to go in the water twice, like this is not going to be a great situation. But, the upside was there pre-transfer. All it takes is an injury. I'd like if you're talking about like a receiver too that like doesn't worry me compared to others, it's probably Mario Williams, right? Like, and that's a great offense to be in. So is it a great situation? No. Is it like you're dead in the water? No. Like I think Gary Bryant or Taj Washington could be relevant. Like the thing is, right, like everybody has transferred to USC as a receiver. They have so many guys at this point. It's actually obnoxious. I'm very interested to see where Mario Williams goes because I think Andrew's right. Like that's a really interesting option pending where he goes. So we'll see what happens in terms of ADP and where he moves. But
I'm in the mock draft Friday. So should I screw this all up and just take him real early, or should I just not take him at all and just see where he goes?
I think you have to not take him at all and see where he goes.
Okay. We actually haven't even discussed that mock draft, how we want to attack it as a team here.
Good luck.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Right. All right. Andrew, you brought up a topic.
You want to go back to Dion?
If you got something else to add about Dion.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm good for now.
We had a topic pre-show, and I'm struggling to remember what it was. But the discussion you guys had about the Twitter back and forth.
Yeah, Andrew created riots on Twitter this weekend.
Right. Would you like to go into that?
I'm generally such a novice when it comes to incoming freshmen, and I threw on which podcast was it? One of the Campus to Canton ones. I guess it was the future freshman one, right, with Brandon, and then he brought on all the friends. Jared was on it. Mitch Hart was on it, and they did a freshman draft with the idea being 12 picks per round, and I guess they played out 3 rounds. I only got through the first round though when I was running on Saturday, and I was on vacation, but so it was fairly loud where I was running. So I thought it was realistic that I could have just missed a pick or two, but I thought it was odd when I got done that I didn't hear Kate Klubik go at all in the first round. So I tweeted at them and I was like, "Yeah, I feel like an idiot that I just missed this," or like, let's go with that. And where it netted out was that Klubnik didn't go until the 8th pick in the 3rd round. So I saved myself a ton more of time of gaslighting myself because I would have gone through all round 2 and probably would have had to go play back round 1 to be like, I must have missed where this happened. Because again, I'm such a novice when it comes to freshmen, generally speaking, because everything that all my thoughts are just kind of formed by what I read more than just really processing anything firsthand. But starting at pick 1.02, I was thinking, okay, Klubnik should be going any pick now, and it just didn't happen. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. Like my tape grinding of about 10 seconds of one play of his tells me that dude has that baseball athleticism that that gets my heart fluttering when a guy can just whip the ball like that. Nothing will drive me to a quarterback quicker than seeing that. Like in hindsight, I don't know why I wasn't more on Radler. I guess I feel like I got lucky just by generally being the guy that wants to be contrarian and not necessarily take a QB early, because Radler checks that box. Like, dude just whips the ball over the place. It's so effing cool. But Klubnik, like, I don't know if you've seen him at all, but like, dude can kind of just scramble around and throw it like he's just throwing off a crow hop, and I don't know, like that. That's all I need to see. The dude's good to go. But I don't know.
I think people are scared of that offense, right? Like, I think I don't know. Sometimes it's weird. You almost want like the starting quarterback at the school you're going to be very, very good, so he just gets out of the way.
Yeah.
Like what it's a possibility that like DJU is good enough to keep starting, but like not go to the pros, and then all of a sudden like Klubnik is just like chilling for a couple of years. It's not like likely, but it's possible. I don't know much about, like, I've heard Drew Aller is like a huge guy for some of those C2C guys, but like it's James Franklin. Like, I feel like that's kind of like the same offense in a sense where it's like not super exciting. Like Sean Clifford's not getting picked high, like,
yeah.
What are we thinking with Aller? Like, between the two, I'm guessing you would want Klubnik, but like, what would it take for you to want Aller over him?
I feel like every report you were hearing on Aller this spring is that like he's in no position right now to challenge for that starting job at any time in the early portion of this year. And I feel like I would need to hear things strongly the opposite of that to push me at all in his direction relative to Klubnik. I think that like the most interesting part of trying to process how to feel about Klubnik is, where do you think the direction of the Clemson program generally goes? And you can make a coach an argument for pretty much any direction, I think, right? You can make the argument that they're going to get back to being Clemson that we've seen more or less every year outside of this past year. You can make an argument that things are going to be pretty static relative to last year for the foreseeable future, leaning on the defense more than anything else. You can make an argument that the program's ready to decline. Like, I wanted to talk myself out of that one. That was not a possibility but like programs, it feels like, generally speaking, that they can, even like some great ones like Florida State, right? That I feel like there were probably signs for that, and a lot of them were kind of recruiting related, right? But the death isn't the right word, but the decline of that program probably happened quicker than a lot of people thought. I've seen tweets from your boy Debbie Warehouse talking about how Clemson is just, they're recruiting, like, what the F are they doing, taking like 0-star recruits in their class and stuff like that. You can definitely make the argument, I think, that a lot of the weird stuff that Dabo does in terms of instilling culture, bringing in people that fit his culture at the expense of talent, like, those things eventually catch up to you when you don't have T-Law and ETN just
and T. Higgins
winning all over the field. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I
think like there's teams that have windows, and have they is their window shut? I guess is kind of your question, right? Are they still in their window to win, or is their time gone now?
I mean, it's the ACC. I think, like, is their window shut, like, in terms of like realistically competing for a national championship? Right. I would say yeah. I think you have to have a quarterback, right? And they don't have a quarterback, not that we've seen. I mean, they're also the ACC, so like they have the opportunity to get there.
But how much of their offensive struggles is strictly the quarterback position? Like, if they have a good quarterback, are they now just a juggernaut again? I feel like it's deeper than that.
I don't know. I've always been under the impression that, like, in the camp of, if you have a great quarterback, like a legit quarterback, you can get rid of bad coaching issues, because especially in college, right? Like, almost all these guys that are great college quarterbacks can also run. So like you can make up for mistakes and bad stuff, right? I don't know. It's just kind of like a really interesting way to look at, like, Virginia. You got Brennan Armstrong, and there's a lot of people that are like super down on their offense. And I get it, because like maybe the offense that's going there, like that coordinator and their past tendencies say one thing, but like to me, it's like when you have like that much skill and talent, like smart coaches should just let them do their thing and then get dumb when they get their own players in. That's just me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think ACC, they're always going to be in play with the players that they're getting. Like, they are still getting really good players. So the ACC is always going to be in play. But in terms of like national title relevancy, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see, because if DJU just doesn't progress, they're probably still a 10-win team. We can get to that later if we want to, but no, I think quarterback play will absolutely help them, but I don't know. I think it's deeper than just quarterback. All right. So do we want to just go ahead and jump into our team win totals?
Do we want to talk real quick about double buys?
Oh,
and then go into.
Completely forgot about double buys. Chris, actually, I don't know if it was Chris, but I'm assuming it was Chris who tweeted out from the BTR Twitter account that there were quite a few teams that have double buys this year. Fantrax loaded those in. So, Chris, is there any teams that you think? Actually, let me pull up the list.
Yeah, pull it up. First of all, it is amazing to have it. Like, it is so difficult to worry about. Like, we're in these tight end premium leagues. When you're drafting defenses, it's so annoying to have to spend the extra time on like the bye week. So, right, it is very nice. It also created about 30 minutes of excitement / extreme scared moments of my life looking at past best ball drafts to see if I really screwed myself over.
Yeah.
And I actually did not. There was one or two sketchy situations, but otherwise pretty good. I was pretty happy.
I feel like I already won the leagues just because I kind of hit lottery there. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed. So I assume they'll correct it. Well, they will. They definitely will. But right now, if you look at, for instance, your team roster page, and it's got that column with the bye weeks on it, and then if you click into a player, the individual schedules, everything is moved up a week. So, for instance, San Jose State opens week 1 against some scrub. I think it's Portland State. But it lists them at week 0 when you're looking at the individual, the full schedule in Chevin's page. So the bye week, when you're looking at the schedule, is 1 week earlier than the correct one, which is on the team roster page.
Right. Okay.
Which threw me off for like so this came out while I was on vacation, and I obviously was drinking and analyzing my college fantasy football team. So I couldn't understand why, like, I was triangulating the team roster page to the individual players to FBS schedules, and I couldn't understand why something was clearly off. But that's the answer to that riddle. Okay, so as you can see here, if you are watching the video version of this, I have the all the teams that have double buys, and I keep clicking it off. Why do I keep doing that? So there's quite a few. I think Florida State having 2, Wyoming having 2, Northwestern has 2, Illinois, Vandy.
The most surprising to me is North Carolina.
Okay, yeah, Nevada, North Carolina, Utah State, yeah.
But I think the most fantasy relevant ones are Nevada, North Carolina,
New Mexico State, right?
Of course, New Mexico State. We've talked a lot about North Texas and like what their offense could be if they figured that out, like if you nail the right guy type of thing. But largely, if you're on this list, you're not winning 7 games this year. That's my takeaway. I used to avoid all players that had double buys in our best ball drafts, like as a rule. But I've matured a little bit, or maybe I just didn't have access to the buy info on Fantrax's page and was just drafting off of who I liked up until now. But yeah, I mean,
there's. Did you mention that Utah State is in here, Chris?
Utah State. Yep, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Mhm.
Nevada, we no longer care about though, with everyone migrating to Colorado State. DraftKings put out full week 1 spreads for every game, with the exception of the ones that are FCS, as best I can tell, that involve an FCS team. FanDuel's got a ton of different games, but I don't know if they have a full week 1 slate. Like they've got. It seems like they have all like more games across the entire year, and DraftKings has added more games across the the duration of the year. But initially over the weekend, DraftKings just dropped all week 1, and week 0 excluding FCS. But I was looking at it, I was like, well, I'm not a good spread better, so I'm just probably going to avoid this. But I was like, oh, let me see, maybe they like flipped a line or something. The only game that I was really close to betting was Nevada's week 1, not week 0, because they play week 0 as well. Week 1 they play Texas State, and they're 10.5-point favorites. And I was like, they fucking Nevada sucks, dude. Like last we saw of them was that Western Michigan game. Like Texas State can keep it within 10, but I haven't.
I hear they have a really tall QB.
You think Nate Cox is going to start for them? They brought in Illingsworth.
I know. I'm just more joking at like the fact that the whole bowl game, all they talked about was how tall that guy was. It's like, dude, you got nothing else. It
was wild watching that guy try and move around the football field.
Oof. Yeah. All right, we can move off of this. I'm glad you brought it up, though. I did mean to talk about it.
I think it's really, really interesting. I think largely double buys.
It can impact how you draft for sure.
If you're picking, like, I think the number one guy I can think of out of this whole group is like Josh Downs, right? Like UNC receiver stud. If you're picking him at like 22, like maybe you take Nathaniel Dell over him or something because of it. But like, I think Andrew's right. Largely, especially in like a best ball format, you're looking for like the guy that's going to produce the upside and that type of stuff. And I think you can just say, you know what, like, I didn't get it for this week, but if he's that good of a talent, then I'm good with it. Yeah, it's like a coin flip type thing. It's more to me.
Right. No, that's a good statement there. I also want to talk about real quick. I got the email. I don't know if you guys got it about Fantrax's new notes feature. I've never really used the notes. I'm really not even sure how it really works, but
it's new, right?
They've always had you've been able to like do notes. Like if you scroll to the bottom, I guess on the desktop, if you scrolled all the way to the bottom, there's always like a notes.
You could put notes on your own player, like a player. That's what they're doing, right?
If you go to your in your league, it says like there's the other tab. There's a notes tab, and you can add a note.
That sounds like something that you've concocted so you can understand and see everything that we think about our guys.
Maybe. But no, I don't. I guess there's not really much to say. I just thought maybe you guys had more insight on the notes feature. You guys,
it reminds me of back, like I remember playing online poker before Black Friday in like when I was in college in like 2006, 2007, and Party Poker had this feature as well, where you could write notes on other players in that player. It was in some ways the greatest, but also in some ways like the weird, like it's kind of like a weird thing to be able to like write notes about another player's username and have it follow that player. And next time they pop up at your table, it's like, ooh, what did I write about that person? Oh, they're horrible. Okay, let me call or try and bluff them or whatever. So this kind of reminds me of that, just in the sense that it's at the same level of grain, like at the player level. Did you see Dan tweeted at us that basically that's a conspiracy, that there's no like, yeah. Which I could totally get. Like, what if this is queryable via API or commissioners can see it or something like that? Fat chance.
Yeah, I don't know. I laughed for sure, and I appreciate him saying that because I think that's like right up our alley in terms of like how we think.
Right.
But I think it's just like an interesting feature that's not really going to be like I would never use that feature. Like I just don't know how I would use that. Right. Like it makes sense for like poker players, like in your previous story, because it's like, okay, well, this guy means nothing to me. This login or whatever means nothing.
So it could make sense. what if I told you that those notes follow to the draft room?
So check this out. So like, let's pick any player here.
Yeah.
You guys can see it, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
It's kinda small, but yeah.
All right. So I click, here's Sam Howell, whatever. It says add note. I can click
Okay.
that and then type in he sucks and save it. And then like every time I click on him, I guess it pops up that, oh yeah, he sucks. I should just move on.
Is that like under the latest news? He sucks.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it could be like if you are doing.
I think for the draft side of things, Andrew is right. Like there's some value there. Like, okay, well, great. Like maybe tight end defense option where you're like trying to pick like a good player for like the bye week of another player. And like that's beyond the scope of like a typical research note. I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's something if you
Well,
got
it's attempting to shift the paradigm, or at least start the conversation for shifting the paradigm of where you're doing your college football research, right? So much of it's done offline, right, in the form of Google Docs and stuff like that, or at least that's how I do it. I centralize all that stuff and then access it like on my way to work, whatever, or just chilling on my phone. So there's lots of like they would need to do a lot more, I think, to get me to the point where I'm doing my actual research in Fantrax, for instance, rolling over to the next year, the day after the national championship would be a good start. But
not sending 12.
I mean, if you're, I'm open to, I can be wooed, right?
I find myself channeling my inner customer because I work in SaaS, and so like my customers complain about stuff and they just want like one thing over another. And I think, Andrew, you can appreciate this for sure. It's like you just spent time creating this. Why didn't you just do that? Like, why didn't you spend your time and resources on this other feature instead? Like, this is dumb. Give me this instead. But I think you're kind of right. Like, I think they're trying to like bring you all back into it. And like, you're right. Like if you're on the subway and you're just like looking at stuff and you think something's interesting, you jot a note down, it carries over to back when you get in the, in the office or back at home, it's on the desktop. Like it makes sense. It's just not like anything super sexy, I think.
Okay. So I've just been trying to like mess around and see if like, because Andrew said something about, does it translate to like the draft room?
Yeah.
And it does, the new draft room.
Yeah. The new
New draft room is tight.
Yeah.
Great job, Fantrax. I'll
Nice.
give them props there.
Yeah, this is actually the first time I've really sat down and looked at it. I don't do all the drafts you guys do.
Yeah, I was so ready to hate on it, but unfortunately, there's not really anything negative I can say. It pops.
What I would say is like something that I would love for them to do, and I think everybody would agree, especially like Josh and Kyle, those auto drafters, is like having the ability to have like a pre-sorted ranking that you could just import. You could go into a best ball and boom, all of a sudden you have your top 100 players that you've already created.
I saw their conversation about this, and I think you can upload rankings, but what you can't do is upload a queue, which is like it's splitting hairs almost. But I think that's the distinction, and they want to be able to upload queues.
I could see where it gets really difficult for like supplemental type situations because it's like, well, Michael Trigg's available in this league, but he's not available in this league. How do we allow you to import your Q rankings? Like that makes sense that there's some confusion there, but like in a brand new league, it's like it'd be nice. Like there's 0 variables getting in the way. Like it'd be nice, but I get it. It's a wish list.
Right. All right. Now I think we can get to our
what everybody's been waiting for.
What everybody's been waiting for, the win totals, our 3 teams. I'm going to start it off. I know in the Discord, we ask, and every time we get this team.
Corey Cavender hit us up about it too, I believe. And he's an OG follower.
So I will go ahead and put it up on the screen. We will talk Wisconsin. All right. You guys see the schedule.
Maybe a little bit zoom in.
Okay.
Maybe just a smidgen. There we go. That's better. Thank you.
All right. Week 1, Illinois State. We're going to give them a win, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Okay. Washington State at home. Week 2. Win.
No reason not to. Agreed.
Okay. New Mexico State at home. Got to be a win, right?
So they're 3-0. I have personally appointed with no dispute from anyone because no one wants to be any sort of leader for this kind of thing. But I personally appointed myself to project manage the scoping of my college football trip that me and my buddies go on this year, and that game, the Wisconsin Ohio State game, is being considered, or that for a few different reasons, right? Likelihood of both teams being 3-0. If Ohio State gets by Notre Dame, which presumably they should week 1, then it's 3-0, 3-0. Pretty weak slate in week 4. Chances of game day high. So I would like to potentially be at that game. Generally, we like to do things that are a little more in the South, but we also have been going a little later in the year. So I think this will be our first Big Ten game if we do this. So
I feel like that's got the highest probability, or very high probability, of like a 3 versus 9 that is like 42-7. You know, it's like if you told me like here's 20 games, which one is the most likely to be a blowout? Of top 10 match. But I think you nailed it, right? Like it's very much going to be 3-0 versus 3-0. Like you're going to have, those are 2 very typical great Big Ten teams. It's a West versus East in terms of Big Ten. It's a very cool game. Ohio State's awesome. My parents went there a couple of years ago when Michigan State got blown out at night, and they said it was amazing. My parents don't like fun. So
lost then.
But yes, lost.
I was reading an article on the projected game day site for each week, and so Ohio State Notre Dame is apparently already game day week 1. I didn't know that, but this article said as much, and that is at Ohio State. So, and then the article also predicted that this would be game day week 4, but I don't. Like game day's done stuff like that before, where they just go back to the same place after a short duration, but it always feels like the worst decision to me. So I mean, I guess you can't really rule it out because they do it. It seems like every single year. It's like, they did Georgia like twice in 3 weeks last year, right? They were there for like Kentucky and Arkansas or something like that. So I mean, it's definitely possible, but it feels ridiculous to.
I feel like Florida Tennessee might be a better game.
So that's the week after, right?
Week 4.
I thought that was week 5.
I guess so week 0. So I guess
did you make the mistake?
Did you get a fan checks?
No, I'm on FB schedules.
Oh, okay.
No, Wisconsin at Ohio State's week 4, and so is Florida at Tennessee.
Really? Maybe I made the mistake when I was trying to discuss this with my friends, because I proposed Florida Tennessee initially, and I thought that was October 1st. But perhaps
it isn't a very good weekend though. You're dead on. Like I'm looking at this real quick. TCU SMU is cool for degens like us. Yeah. Texas Tech, Notre Dame at UNC, but they already did. Why would they go to UNC to watch Notre Dame again?
Yeah.
It's a good. I mean, you're not wrong. They've done it before. It always seems like bad ideas, but like, where else could they go to? So like, okay, so let's say they don't do a top 25 matchup.
Arkansas A&M.
That's it. Yeah, that could be a good one. Or you could go FCS. What kind of FCS Army Navy type matchup do we have available? You know, because they always love doing stuff like that. But I don't see anything that pops out.
Yeah,
it's an L though.
Long story short, it's an L. All right, let me get to. There we go. So now they're 3-1. They get Illinois.
Now, at this point in the season, do we think Chez Mellusi is getting any sort of real run? Is he back from whatever? He ripped his knee up, right? Pretty late in the season.
I think he hits the portal by end of Illinois.
Yeah, after Braylon gets 150 carries in the first 4 games.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So 3-1, play Illinois.
4-1.
4-1 at Northwestern. 5-1.
Yeah.
At Michigan State.
This one's toss up to me. I lean Wisconsin. I lean Wisconsin, but Michigan State always wins these types of games at home. It's probably going to be at like 8 p.m. on ABC for some reason. You know, they're going to defy all logic. You know, I can see it both ways. I'm cool with a loss.
I think both Michigan schools have worse years this year than they did last year, so I will give Wisconsin that one.
So we're leaning loss though, because 2 of us took loss.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
All right. So
5-2.
now homecoming against Purdue. Andrew.
The problem's going to be when we get to Purdue and I have them going 12-0.
I think this is a win. It's homecoming. I mean, you got to win for homecoming. I mean, Purdue's offense seems to be getting thinner and thinner by the week, right? Like with this Milton Wright stuff.
I'll give them a win.
And that was like what's carrying them, right? Is their offense.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we would have done Purdue already, it was because their offense can put up some points.
You're thinking of things through a fantasy perspective. Like they still have, I think, lots of guys who can contribute. And look, we saw when they played Tennessee and they just threw whoever out on the field and O'Connell threw for 600 yards. With the main receiver being a guy with 2 torn ACLs. So
you didn't have 3. No, but Wisconsin's also usually has an amazing defense. So like I'm not like I think it matters more against Wisconsin than it does against the Tennessee. You're not wrong though. You're not wrong.
If we're trying to get the most amount of games right, I guess you can't pick Purdue to win that game.
Okay, so a win for Wisconsin.
We'll see what happens when we pick Purdue's schedule.
We're worried about Purdue. What are we going to?
There's 2 of us against one of you, Andrew. So you're in trouble. That's all I got to say.
We talked about this. I think it was before you jumped in. We're going to have a lot of if you go back and look at some of our picks, we had a team win 9 games, and then we have like a team later on that we pick, and we actually flip our pick, but we don't remember who we picked the first time. So it's very possible that we come back when we do Purdue. It's like, oh yeah, they'll beat Wisconsin. Who knows?
We just chalk it up to being Bayesian, right? Processing new information as it comes in.
Exactly.
Our opinions shift with the facts.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So now bye week. Then they get Maryland at home again. They got a lot of home games. I feel like almost every game's been at home.
I think they're ending all on the road, but yeah,
they've got to be
that way.
All right, so they got Maryland at home. They win at Iowa. Loss.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. At Nebraska.
It's a win to me. They have a double bye, therefore they're not good. Win.
And then they close at home with Minnesota.
How wild is it that all they had to do was beat Minnesota last year and they were in the Big Ten title game and they couldn't get it done? Do you remember that? Like in the last week of the season, it was winning in against.
And they blew it.
A disgusting game all the way around. A true Minnesota-Wisconsin game.
All right, so we picked them to beat Minnesota this year.
So we have 2 losses for them?
We have three. We have Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa. So that's 9 wins, right? Wisconsin, 9 wins. Let me go ahead and log it. By the way, we are going to post this spreadsheet that we have that tracks all of our win totals that we've concocted.
But they don't play Michigan. That's wild. I feel like they always play Michigan.
They don't.
They don't. Yeah.
So we have them going 9-3. All right.
Do you want to know what their win total is presently?
Sure.
Of course.
Do you want to guess?
I'm going to say 8.5.
9.5.
8.5. But juice to the over.
Okay. Very nice, Zach. Very nice.
So 9 wins is right on the money.
Yeah.
I think the next team we do, based on the chatter this morning on Twitter, should be Washington State.
Is this? I didn't hear the host.
This is the Cameron Ward chatter. Yeah. I think we have to. I think Cameron Ward is Josh and Jared did a great job talking about it. No need to talk about it. Listen to Chasing the Natty. We're cool with pitching other people's content. They did a great job of talking about it. I am very weary of Cameron Ward, but he also has 3 years of eligibility, so it's very interesting. But
Who doesn't have 3 years of eligibility, Chris?
That whole list that Nate put out, CFF Nate, was amazing.
What a degenerate! And
I loved it.
I mean that, and I mean it in the best way possible. Like, I saw that list, I'm like, that it's impressive. I have to give him that one. Like, I would have never spent any time doing that.
I think my favorite part was that he was listing guys that he was genuinely interested in that are like completely random, and I loved every second of it.
Well, he probably threw in some guys to throw you off the trail too, right? I mean, I assume that's how his mind works.
Well, that's what I would do.
That's definitely how his mind works.
Yeah.
I got midway through the Chasing Natty segment though of the Cameron Ward discussion, so you can tell where the conclusion's going to net out. It's a love fest, right? But yeah,
Jared love fest, Josh non-love fest.
He
throws out some really good past examples. I was listening right at the beginning of it. I was like, wait a second, Dakota Prokop or whatever that guy's name was. Was awful. And then Josh went right into it in terms of past Pac-12 quarterbacks coming from FCS. He had some really good stuff. I think he actually did research beforehand, which was intriguing. I don't know what that is either, but props to him. But yeah. Washington State.
All right. Washington State. They actually played Wisconsin, so it's.
What happened to the version of the schedule where I could look smart by calling out what the FCS team mascot is? We showed a version previously where it didn't say what the mascot was.
I don't know.
And we can circle back to that for next episode.
Was it Portland State that we were trying to figure out?
Yeah, the Vikings.
Yeah, why?
Maybe FBS.
I don't even know. I'm not want this to look at the answer sheet before I solve the puzzle. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, they start off with Idaho win. It's not at the Kibby Dome.
If it was at the Kibby Dome, it'd be a different story. But
So win. At Wisconsin, we've already said loss. We can't flip flop on the same episode.
Yeah, next week maybe. But
right. All right, Colorado State.
Game of the year candidate.
In Pullman.
In Pullman. I mean, in my book, it's an L.
In Pullman. So what takes you to the L? What takes you to the L? Is it because Cameron Ward is not good? And it's too early for him to then realize it?
I think Colorado State is really good.
Okay.
I could ride with the L there. I could do that.
I can do it.
Okay. Then they go Oregon, or they get Oregon at home in Pullman week 4. We're going to say loss.
That's a loss, yeah.
Then they get Cal week 5 at home. Again, another 4 of their first 5 games are at home.
I mean, that's generally what you see for Power 5 schools, though, right? Like, they're going to schedule non-con with try and load up on some home games.
Yeah. So they get Cal at home. We're going to say win.
I lean win because Cal is never fun or good.
But so
that's a tough one.
What is your opinion of Washington State coming into this year? I feel like we're probably basing a lot of assumptions based on their strong close last year, but there had to have been a lot of turbulence coming out of last year under the surface, just given how much changed within the program, right? Like, I think we're operating as a community that, okay, things ended really well, and now you bring in this fun offense, and it's wheels up, smooth sailing, and maybe it does play out that way. But like, just chalking them for win, and similarly, right, thinking about best case scenario on the offensive front. I'm so excited to hear Josh just rail against Cameron Ward in the upcoming minutes of the Chasing Natty that I need to that I'll put on probably the next day or two. But like, I think just giving them blind W's, like, it could go. Would it be that surprising if they were struggling to qualify for a bowl?
No,
not at all. But we've also only given them W's over Idaho and Cal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Yeah. You know, we gave them the loss against Colorado State. Like, if we're doing that, like, you know that we're down for.
Yeah, I can't believe I talked you into that one.
You talked Zach, and I didn't have an
No, I feel like that would have been a toss up for me.
Yeah.
Like I think if that's at Colorado State, I have no hesitation.
I think they're gonna win. I think they're gonna win a couple games they shouldn't, and then they're just gonna lose games they should. Right? Like I think Colorado State, and on paper, is a game they should win. They'll lose by 2 touchdowns. Then they'll come in here and win at Stanford, which is nothing crazy, but like on the road against a team that typically plays like decent football, like that type of stuff is interesting. But
so Cal, we're going with a loss. I mean a win. I'm sorry, a win.
You can give it to them.
They
Do you
win.
remember how fun that
They won
that
21
was
to
the
6.
game of the year when it was Sonny Dykes and Mike Leach, and now the Cal program is dead to me.
They beat them 21-6 last year. Beat Cal. Yeah.
So they're 2-3 right now.
In Cal. Yeah, 2-3. All right,
Okay.
so then they go at USC. Loss.
Loss.
Got to be a loss, right? All right, then at Oregon State, I'm going to say loss.
So they're 2-5.
Yeah, I would agree. Like that's gonna be like a 11 p.m. Pac-12 network game. You're gonna I'm gonna literally be watching Gamecast because I rostered the Oregon State tight end, and it's just gonna be a long night.
All right, then they go bye week, then Utah, loss.
Not good, Bob.
They get them at home, but it's a loss. At Stanford.
I mean, they're 2-6 right now at this
I'm going
point,
to give
right?
them a win.
Yeah, I say
If
loss.
they're going to win another game, it's got to be that one or Arizona.
Dude,
No,
they
got some
not
wins
lose
coming. They
to
got some
Arizona
wins coming.
State. I
Yeah,
can't
they
be
got
having
wins
that
coming.
for my wallet.
Okay, so we've got them losing Utah. We're going to give them the win against Stanford.
I like loss.
Yeah, I think Stanford turns things around a bit this year.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know I just said that they'll win a game that they're supposed to lose, but I think they're supposed to lose it. I'm going to take the what should happen and go with it. They
So
should
we'll
lose that Stanford.
I'm cool. Give them a loss. So Arizona State at home. They get them in Pullman.
I think they win that one. I don't think Arizona State's any good.
No,
But we've
awful,
determined
dude.
Washington State's not any good either.
But it's at home. You never, what did we didn't we already do our Arizona State? What did we have them at?
Yeah, God, what did we have them at? Hold
I think
on.
we had them at 5.
So we have Arizona State at 5. I don't remember who we picked here.
It's Washington State's winning that game.
Okay, fine.
I like the win.
Win at Arizona.
Give them that.
So we'll give them that one.
Yep.
And they
I mean,
close
it's revenge. It's a revenge
Apple Cup.
game.
The Apple Cup to close out. They get Washington at home.
I got a loss there. I feel like they never show up against Washington. And a lot of it's because Washington's defense has been so good
they slaughtered Washington last year.
Yeah.
But besides that, though.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
40
especially if they move back into air raid. That's when Washington was feasting on them. And with DeBoer this year, I mean, maybe it's not perfect year one, but
it'll be end of the year.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll get in a groove a little bit of some offense.
That's enough.
Okay, so in recapping this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4,
5. Arizona. The 2 Arizonas, right?
Well, hold on. We got Arizona State. We gave them both of those.
Okay,
we
so
have
4. Yeah, and lost to Stanford. Yep.
Yeah. So we're gonna say they're going 4 and 8. That's our call.
So the win total. Do you want to guess the win total?
5.5.
It is 5.5. It is 5.5.
Is it?
But the under is -170. So everyone is coming to the same conclusion we are. So we're the sheep, right? We're the public being let slaughter and leading our base to slaughter as well.
All right. One more team, Andrew. Would you have a choice?
I didn't realize that it was it was going to come to us. So
actually, you know what? I don't have. If you have a team you want to pick, that's cool. But I want to go to the Discord. If you.
No, yeah, I have no preference. You can do whatever you want.
Okay. A couple. We already did Wisconsin. Where is it? Oh, there's Clemson, Miami, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, or A&M.
I kind of like the Miami in spirit with the Andrews T-shirt.
Perfect.
What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Miami. You guys see that?
Yeah.
Bethune-Cookman isn't the school. That's not the one where the guy comes running with his helmet in that Miami game and slams the other guy. Do you remember this fight? It was Miami against some FCS school. It might have been Florida A&M, where
I think it was awesome. Bethune-Cookman, wasn't it?
It's either that or Florida A&M. I think I'm leaning Florida A&M now, but it's still an excuse to talk about it. Like, that video is great. I guess we can give them a dub over Bethune, though.
Yeah, I would think so. All right, they get Bethune-Cookman at home, win. Southern Miss at home.
Southern Miss is so G5 totals haven't been released yet, but blindly, not even being conservative of the schedule, I just want to bet the over on them so much because I have a lot of belief in the direction of the program. The schedule is obviously not as nice as you would like with the inclusion of Miami. I think they also got Tulane and Liberty in non-con, so not optimal. But I would still like to bet the over on them. I don't think they win this game though.
Their number is going to be super low, but I love their coach.
Dude,
I love
he's great.
that their coach is like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to roll out some running backs at quarterback today. Let's see what happens.
And it worked.
So, yeah. I mean, Miami definitely wins it for sure. But
yeah.
Yep. All right. So then the third game at A&M.
So this is that classic game on A&M schedule that buys Jimbo another 3-year extension of guaranteed money.
So justifies it. At least.
Tweeted it. I forget who tweeted it, but someone was talking about Jimbo is the master at pandering to his base and bringing and accentuating all the positive things that he's done and just getting all the negatives kind of thrown out the window in terms like 3 of his seasons are like 9 wins, 8 wins, 8 wins out of 4 seasons that he's been there. But based on the opinion of the fans of Jimbo, you'd think that he's ripping off natties left and right. And this is the game that will get them there this year, right? He's going to lock up another guaranteed $12 million for another 3 years. That guaranteed is ironclad guaranteed. No matter what he does, he's getting that money. It's that kind of guarantee. And
What's interesting is that usually when you win 8 and 9 games with the recruiting classes that he has, you'd think that he'd get tore up, right? But you're right. Somehow he has this way of flipping it into I did a great job by winning 9 games.
Dude, they were partying when they lost to Clemson by a 1 score 3 years ago. He was celebrating after the game, and everyone was like, "Wow, great job, Jimbo! You made that game close." Yeah, it's masterclass.
So Miami's a loss. A&M's a loss.
Yeah, it's a loss.
All right. So then they go to Middle Tennessee at home. We'll say win.
Yep.
Yeah.
So 3-1 going into their early week 5 bye. Then they come back home again against North Carolina.
So win to me.
Win. Okay, I go with win. Andrew?
Yeah. I mean,
okay. All right, at Virginia Tech. Chris?
I think it's a win. I just don't think that Tech's – I think Tech's a 6-6 type team. I like where they're headed, but I think this is going to be an average year at best. I just don't see a lot of routes to a lot of wins there for Tech.
So win for Miami.
I was looking for the right segue. When we were on vacation this weekend, we stopped into an old school toy store, and I was looking for sports things, optimally more Funkos of the college ones, but they didn't have any. But Margaret found this, Chris, and I was like, "Oh, I need that for my buddy."
Nice.
A wooden toy Virginia Tech train.
Nice.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. When we eventually meet up, okay. Amelia wanted to open it tonight, but I was like, probably not.
Nice. All right.
But yeah.
Duke at home.
Win.
All right. At Virginia. That one's tricky. I'm gonna give them a loss.
Yeah, I think Virginia could like just put up a ton of points.
You are not buying into the narrative that Virginia doesn't do that well with the new offense.
I'm not. I mean, I understand Jared's point, like based on ADP, like, but like I think that his perspective is probably Brendan Armstrong is a 4th rounder. I would take him in the 7th. Like, I just don't buy that. Like,
Well, the idea is that
right.
Elliott killed Clemson's offense, right? And now he's going to light this offense on fire as well.
I just think it's the first year. I don't think he kills it the first year.
Yeah.
I think Brendan Armstrong.
He just lets the aliens get the football.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's not going to happen yet. I think the Virginia I love it because Virginia's going to be offensively garbage. Like, I love it and love them to be. And I just don't think it's going to happen yet.
Yeah. It's fair.
So, loss to Virginia. Florida State, they get them at home. Win.
You say that so confidently, dude. That game, I feel like it continues to be like a true rivalry game, even though these. Like,
you're right, but I feel like we already trashed Florida State earlier in the podcast.
That's fair.
So
what they say.
I can't pick them to win. If I'm picking a winner, I've got to pick Miami.
They have a double bye. They can't win more than 6 games. So I think you have to go loss there for Florida State. Give the Miami Hurricanes the win.
Yeah. Fine.
All right. At Georgia Tech.
It's a win.
All right. At Clemson. If they don't lose this, they're going to be 11-1. The way I look at it.
I mean, this screams like 17.
Sorry, they lost
16.
They lost to A&M. My bad. So they'd be 10-2. My bad.
I don't have an issue going Clemson here because I think their defense is just going to be strong for sure. I am worried about Miami's receivers.
What is your expectation for the kind of offense that Gaddis installs?
I think they're going to do something similar to Michigan with a tad, like with more passing. Like, I don't think they're not going to run out 2 running backs like they did with Michigan. I also think that like Gaddis was interesting because at Michigan, they had 2 stud running backs, clearly. And they had a very average offense with like Cade McNamara. So why would you push it? And they played a bunch of teams that were not good at stopping the run. So why wouldn't you just run it? Right. Like, and then they got up and then they ran it. Like, so I don't think like Van Dyke doesn't scare me. I think he's going to have a great year. The thing that would scare me is like, they have a bunch of guys that have done like proven nothing. And that is what scares me.
Yeah, was, I haven't done real research into it, but that's the question in my book is Gaddis, is that his kind of offense that he ran at Michigan, or did he just lean into that because that was the strength of the team? And as one of your teams, I defer to you, obviously.
I think he leaned into it pretty hard. And I think Harbaugh is the type that's like, we focus on winning first rather than potentially like, if the way to win is to beat Washington by running it 60 times, we're going to run it 60. Like, if that guarantees me the win, which it did,
he's very adaptive. He's very adaptive to get the win more so than to run his scheme.
Gaddis, though, look at some of those games last year. He got pretty creative at the end. Like Iowa, he had that Donovan Edwards touchdown pass.
Yeah.
Like Sainer still had some different like plays. Like, so I think that he could be creative. And I think about all the athletes he's about to get at Miami too, right? Like, way more than Michigan, right? Like Michigan had some guys that like could do some fun things, but you know, when you look at like the Miami guys, I think it's fair to be kind of scared of like what their offense could be, but I think he leaned into it pretty hard with like just winning the game to get to the Ohio State game.
Yeah. All right. So what's our verdict? Loss?
Yeah.
That's probably the toughest one for me to predict, but I would go loss.
Yeah. And then they've closed out with Pitt at home.
That game's supposed to be Black Friday, not traditionally speaking. That's the Kenny Pickett game is Black Friday against Pitt. Or against Miami, excuse me. I don't know what that game's doing on a Saturday this year.
Isn't that old school West Virginia, though?
What was that?
Isn't that like a West Virginia thing where Pitt plays West Virginia on Black Friday?
Now that's really old school, right? I mean,
That's the backyard brawl, right? That is
Yeah.
very old school.
it's being renewed this year. I'm not sure if you noticed, but
So we
yeah, I
say,
assume that game gets updated to Black Friday at some point. It's weird that it's great that there's still adjustments being made in terms of the day of the week on which the games are being played. Like it's one of my favorite things in terms of just CFB offseason, like getting that FBS schedule push notification that a game has been changed to a weekday. Fantastic.
What's really interesting is West Virginia renews the rivalry with Pitt, and then a couple weeks later they play Virginia Tech, and that is a very old school.
Dude, I saw that.
We did it a couple years ago. That fun game against, I think that was Will Greer.
Yeah, dude, Labor Day night.
That was an awesome game.
No, it was fantastic.
Yeah,
and
they're doing it again.
Now that same night, Rosen was coming back from 30 down against Texas A&M.
Yes, you're right. You're right. But this West Virginia Tech game, not to sidebar, but is a Thursday night game, which is at Tech, which will be awesome, which will be a cool experience.
That's super cool.
But yeah.
all right. We can wrap
I think
this
we got
up.
them at 9-3, right?
So we have them beating Pitt. All right. So 9-3. They log that. Miami. Hold on. Miami. I said we will share this. So 9 wins for Miami.
What do you think it is listed at presently?
It's got to be right at 9.
9.5. 9.5.
8.5.
8.5.
With slight juice on the over. Finding four losses. So you got the Jimbo game, the Jimbo contract game, Clemson,
and Virginia.
I personally have a tough time giving a high likelihood of losing at Virginia. And then I guess the idea is that there's enough of the other games that have a decent loss probability where it makes the overall picture.
Like the only other game I can look at the schedule and say, you know what, I wouldn't have a problem picking the other team. It'd be Florida State.
All those what happens with Pitt this year. Look, well, what's it? We glossed over Pitt, just kind of gave them a win, right? But like, have you seen Pitt from a rankings perspective, both analytically and just subjectively? I feel like they're due to open at a very high ranking, like top 15 in the country, which I don't agree with at all. Right. But I think that probably contributes to why the number is 8.5.
I feel like our 9 wins is very conservative.
Yeah.
So I would be very, like, if I could do it legally, because I don't mess around with that stuff on offshore stuff, like I would bet the over. I wouldn't throw a lot on it, but I would throw something on it.
I agree. Over 8.5 feels nice.
It's like, I feel like we kind of stretched with Virginia, but I'm cool. Like, I like that prediction. Clemson, I think they could win. Is it likely? It's probably like one of those like 60-40 Clemson wins. Yeah. You know, and then the other close one is A&M. Like, do I think they win at A&M? No, but like that's again like a 65-35 type. You know, like I think it's fairly close. So like to say that they win 9 feels pretty safe. Yeah.
I think 9's good. Especially if it's 8.5, we're right on the money again. All right, we're going to close with that. We actually went a little longer than we normally do this time, but until next week, hopefully next week we can come back and do it again. But until next week, see you guys later.